The moment the cleaning lady whispered, "Don't sign it," the entire boardroom froze, because millionaires don't get warnings from people who scrub their floors. Ethan Caldwell had signed dozens of contracts in his life, some worth millions, some worth far more. But never before had someone stopped him with a whisper so fragile it felt like it might break in the AI. It was late afternoon on the 49th floor of Caldwell and Pierce Real Estate, the skyline of Manhattan blazing orange behind him. Executives filled the sleek conference room, their suits crisp, their eyes glued to the contract that would finalize a massive partnership with Brookline Properties. Everyone expected Ethan to sign. Everyone except the woman standing behind him with a dustpan in hand. Maria, the cleaning lady, gray hair tucked under a worn blue cap, eyes wide with fear. "Sir, please," she whispered again, barely audible. "Don't sign it." A cold hush spread through the room. Alan Briggs, Ethan's VP, a man whose smile never reached his eyes, moved quickly. "Mr. Caldwell, we're minutes away from sealing the biggest deal of the quarter." "She doesn't know what she's talking about."
"Maria, step out. Now."
But Ethan didn't move. Did I and his world? You didn't survive long without paying attention to moments that fell off. And something in Maria's trembling voice hit him like a warning shot. He turned slowly in his chair, meeting her eyes. "Why shouldn't I sign it?" Maria froze, clutching the trash bag to her chest. "I'm sorry, sir. I shouldn't have said anything." She lowered her gaze, already backing away. "Please forget it. I don't want trouble." "Answer me," Ethan said, voice steady, calm but immovable. "You won't get in trouble." The executives exchanged stiff glances. A few forced out nervous laughs. Someone whispered, "This is ridiculous." Maria looked at them, then at Ethan. Her fear was real, but so was her conscience. "You don't know what they're planning," she whispered.
"Brookline.
"Their men were here last night. I was cleaning the hallway by the conference room. They didn't know I was there." She swallowed hard. "I heard them talking about you, about this deal, about what happens after you sign." A murmur moved through the room like a low rumble. Ethan leaned forward, pen forgotten. "What did they say?" Maria's hands shook. "They said you trust too easily. That once you sign, they'll have full control of the Midtown project." And then, she stopped, eyes welling. "They said you won't see the betrayal coming." Alan slammed a folder shut. "Enough. She's making things up." But Ethan wasn't convinced. Not yet. He motioned toward the door. "Maria, come with me. I want you to tell me exactly what you heard." Maria's eyes widened. "Sir, please, if they find out I told you, they won't," Ethan said. "You have my word." But as she stepped forward, the conference room door opened before she could speak, and one of Brookline's executives walked in, too early, too eager, too confident. Ethan's gut tightened. Something was wrong, and this was only the beginning. The moment the Brookline executive walked in, 15 minutes early, and smiling like he already owned the place, Ethan knew Maria's warning wasn't just fear. It was truth. The glass door slid open with a smooth click, and Victor Hale, senior partner at Brookline Properties, stepped inside. His maroon tie was perfectly knotted, his posture sharp, his grin just a little too confident. "Ethan," he boomed. "Hope I'm not late." Traffic was a nightmare. He wasn't late. He was early, way too early. Ethan had dealt with powerful men his entire career. Men who hid their intentions behind smiles, perfect suits, and practiced charm. Victor had that same polished sheen, too polished. And suddenly, the grin on his face felt more like a trap than a greeting. Victor's eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on Maria, the cleaning lady still clutching her trash bag like a lifeline. For a split second, something sharp flashed in his expression. Recognition. Annoyance. Maybe even fear. Then it vanished behind that same polished grin. "What's going on?" Victor asked lightly. "Did I interrupt something?" Alan jumped in before Ethan could speak. "Nothing at all. Just a maintenance issue." Ethan raised a hand. "Actually, we're pausing the signing." Victor's smile froze. "Pausing? Why?" Maria took a step back as everyone looked at her. Ethan didn't like the way Victor's gaze narrowed at her, like she was a loose thread he wanted to cut. Ethan stood. "Because before we sign anything, I want clarity. Victor adjusted his cufflinks, a habit Ethan recognized, stalling, buying time, calculating. Of course. I'm all for clarity. What's the issue? Ethan didn't blink. Last night, your team was in this building. Victor's jaw tightened for half a second. We were finalizing documents. Nothing unusual. Maria's breath hitched. Ethan continued, and apparently there were conversations. Conversations about what happens after we sign. Victor's smile twitched. Ethan, you can't be listening to… I didn't say who I heard it from. Ethan cut in sharply. The entire room went silent. Victor glanced at Maria again, longer this time. So that's what this is. He gave a slow exhale. Ethan, you can't possibly take the word of… I'll take the word of anyone who warns me with fear in their voice and nothing to gain. Ethan said. Victor's mask cracked. Just a little. Let's speak privately. No, Ethan said. We'll speak right here. Alan shifted nervously. A few executives pretended to study their notes. Maria stood frozen, terrified. She had just stepped into a war she didn't understand. Victor's tone dropped an octave. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Sign the papers, Ethan. We both know this is the best deal for Midtown. Is it? Ethan countered. Or is it the best deal for you? For the first time, Victor's expression turned cold. I'd hate for misunderstandings to ruin a partnership, Victor said quietly. And I'd hate for anyone in this room to face consequences. His eyes locked onto Maria, not subtle to threat. Ethan stepped between them. You look at her again like that, and the only thing getting ruined today is this entire deal. Victor didn't answer. He just smiled again, tight, dangerous, bitter. You're making a mistake, he murmured. Maybe, Ethan said. But I won't sign anything until I know the truth. Victor exhaled slowly.
Fine.
I'll give you truth. He stepped closer, voice low, controlled. But you're not going to like it. And neither would Maria, because what Victor revealed next would change everything. Victor said he'd tell the truth, but the truth he delivered hit Ethan like a punch to the chest, because it revealed that the betrayal didn't start today, it started months ago. Victor clasped his hands behind his back and took a slow, casual walk toward the conference table, as if he owned the room. The Manhattan skyline glowed behind him, but the temperature inside the conference room felt like it dropped 10 degrees. Ethan, Victor began, you've always been a smart man.
Strategic.
Careful.
He paused.
But you're also predictable. Ethan's jaw tightened. Victor leaned against the glass table. This Midtown deal? You think you approached us because it was the best partnership? He chuckled.
No.
My team made sure it looked like the only choice. Alan shifted uncomfortably. Maria clutched her hands together, staring at the floor. What does that mean? Ethan asked. It means, Victor said slowly, we influenced your board. Quietly.
Carefully.
We pushed the narrative that Caldwell and Pierce needed this deal to stay competitive. Ethan's stomach twisted. You manipulated my board? Oh, come on. Victor waved a dismissive hand. Everyone manipulates boards. It's corporate America. He said it like it was nothing, like betrayal was just another Tuesday. Ethan glanced toward Alan, who avoided eye contact. That was a red flag Ethan couldn't ignore. Victor continued. The minute you sign, Brookline takes controlling interest in the Midtown project. And you? He grinned. You step back. Retire. Relax. Ethan's pulse spiked. You think I'd step back from a project I built? Oh, you won't choose to. But you will. Victor said it confidently, as if the future was already written. You'll be forced out. Maria gasped softly. Ethan stepped closer, voice low. And what happens to this company? Victor shrugged. Things change.
People change.
Ownership changes. Ownership. Ethan repeated. Of my company? Victor didn't answer directly. Let's just say some of your board members have already shown interest in a more modern direction. Ethan's eyes snapped to Alan again. You knew about this? Alan raised his hands, palms sweating. I don't know what he's talking about. Victor laughed.
Please.
Spare us. Maria trembled. In that moment, Ethan realized her warning may have saved more than his deal. It may have saved his entire company. But here's the real truth. Victor's voice hardened. We didn't expect her. He nodded toward Maria, the cleaning lady who listens behind doors. His smile sharpened. The one who doesn't understand when to stay silent. Maria's face drained of color. Ethan stepped in front of her. If your issue is with me, keep it with me. Oh, Ethan. Victor sighed dramatically. This isn't personal. It's business. His eyes darkened. But people who interfere in business? They get swept away. It was a threat, bare, bold, and dangerous. Ethan took a slow breath. You think you can walk into my building and threaten my employees? My company? My reputation? Victor leaned in. I already have. The silence that followed was crushing. Then Ethan said the words that changed the direction of the entire room. Get out. Victor blinked. Excuse me? You heard me, Ethan said, voice ice cold. This meeting is over. The deal is off. Victor's expression hardened into something vicious. You'll regret this, Caldwell. Not as much as you will, Ethan said. Victor paused, then turned toward Maria one last time, a silent warning, a final threat. Then he walked out. The door clicked shut, and that was when Maria, hands shaking, whispered, Mr. Caldwell, there's something else I didn't tell you. Something I heard last night. Something much worse. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine, because the worst part hadn't even been revealed yet. Maria had already saved Ethan from signing away his company, but the next words she whispered revealed a danger far bigger, far darker, and far closer than he ever imagined. The moment Victor left the room, the air felt lighter, but only for a second. Maria stood trembling beside the conference table, her hands twisting together so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ethan knew fear when he saw it. This wasn't fear of losing a job. This was fear of losing something much bigger. He stepped toward her gently. Maria, tell me the rest. She swallowed hard, eyes glistening. Sir, what I'm about to say, I didn't want to get anyone in trouble. I thought maybe I misunderstood. But after what he said, I know I didn't. Alan muttered under his breath. This is ridiculous. Ethan shot him a look that made him fall silent. Maria took a shaky breath. Last night, around 9 p.m., I was cleaning the hallway outside this room. I heard 2 men from Brookline. They didn't know anyone else was in the building. What did they say? Ethan asked softly. That you weren't going to be a problem anymore. Her voice cracked. That they just needed you to sign and then something was going to happen. Something that would force your board to remove you as CEO. Ethan's heart thudded once, hard. Something like what? He pressed. Maria hesitated, as if saying the words might make them real. They talked about setting you up. Framing you for something. I didn't understand everything, but they mentioned financial misconduct. She looked up at him, eyes full of apology. Sir, they were planning to ruin your reputation. Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. Not anger, something colder. Something dangerous. He looked at Alan again. Alan's face had gone pale. Do you know anything about this? Ethan asked, voice controlled but sharp. Alan shook his head too quickly. Of course not. Maria whispered. They said they already had someone inside your company helping them. The room froze. Ethan's gaze swept across the executives. Not one of them met his eyes. Someone inside? Ethan repeated. Maria nodded. They said this person had access to your financial accounts. That once the deal was signed, this person would make a transfer look like it came from you. Enough to get the SEC involved. Ethan's stomach twisted. A federal investigation, a public scandal, enough to take him down instantly. Maria, Ethan said carefully. Did you hear a name? She pressed a hand to her mouth, then slowly nodded. The executives shifted in their seats, tension rising like electricity. Yes, she whispered. I heard one name. She took a breath. They said, Alan. Alan's chair screeched backward. This is insane. She's lying. But guilt flickered in his eyes, just long enough for Ethan to catch it. Ethan closed the distance between them. Tell me the truth. Right now. Alan backed toward the window. I didn't do anything. I was approached, but I didn't say yes. So you were involved. Ethan said quietly. Alan's mouth opened, but before he could speak, the fire alarm blared through the building. Red lights flashed, sirens screamed. Maria gasped. Oh no, oh no. Ethan turned toward her. Maria, what is it? She whispered the words that made his pulse stop. I heard them say if the contract didn't get signed, they had a backup plan. Ethan's eyes narrowed. What backup plan? The alarm grew louder. Maria's voice shook with terror. Someone else is already inside the building. The fire alarm wasn't an accident. Maria's next words made Ethan realize the danger wasn't outside the building. It was already walking their halls. The shrill fire alarm echoed through the 49th floor, bouncing off glass walls and polished steel. Red strobes flashed like warnings from another world. Executives scrambled from their chairs, unsure whether to run or wait for instructions. But Ethan didn't move, not after what Maria said. He stepped closer to her. Maria, who is inside the building? Her hands shook as she clutched the edge of the conference table. I don't know his name. But last night, the men from Brookline said someone would take care of things if you didn't sign today. Take care of what? Ethan pressed. Maria's eyes filled with fear. They said they'd destroy something. Something you'd never recover from. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. Where? She looked around the conference room.
Here.
Somewhere on this floor. They said the backup plan was already in motion. Alan started panicking. We need to get out of here. Whoever it is, he could be armed. For once, Ethan said coldly, you might actually be right. He turned to Maria. Do you remember anything else? Anything at all? Maria squeezed her eyes shut, trying to recall. I heard one of them say, we'll trigger the alarm, people will evacuate, and he'll have all the access he needs. Ethan's jaw clenched. Access to what? He demanded. Maria hesitated. Your server room. The blood drained from Ethan's face. The server room held everything: financials, contracts, emails, the backbone of Caldwell and Pierce. If someone wiped it or planted fabricated evidence, his company could fall in minutes. Ethan turned to the group of stunned executives. Stay together. Leave the building with security.
Now.
Alan stammered. What about you? I'm going to the server room. Maria grabbed his sleeve. No, sir. It's dangerous. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Maria, you warned me. You kept this company alive today. Now let me do my part. She shook her head, eyes glistening.
Please.
They said the man doing this, he's not afraid of hurting anyone who gets in his way. Ethan looked around the conference room, his company's future hanging in the balance. He'd built this place from nothing. He wouldn't let it fall without a fight. He turned to the hallway. The fire alarm wailed. Doors slammed on other floors. Emergency lights flickered. He stepped out. Maria rushed after him, voice trembling. Sir, wait. He stopped, turning back. Maria, go downstairs with security. But the fear in her eyes deepened. I can't. I know where he might be. Ethan stared at her. What do you mean? She took a shaky breath. When I came in this morning, the storage room near the server hall, the lock was broken. Ethan froze. Broken? Maria nodded. At the time I didn't think much of it, but now, a sudden crash echoed through the hallway. A metallic bang, then a muffled voice. Ethan's instincts sharpened instantly. Get behind me, he whispered. Maria clutched her chest, stepping back. Sir, someone's there. Ethan moved toward the sound, every step careful and controlled. Another crash, this time louder. Then, the server room door slammed violently from the inside. Ethan's heart pounded. Someone was in there, and they weren't trying to hide anymore. When the server room door slammed from the inside, Ethan realized this wasn't just sabotage. It was a man who knew exactly what he was doing, and exactly what he wanted to destroy. The 49th floor hallway pulsed red from the flashing alarm lights. The constant wail pressed against Ethan's skull as he stepped closer to the server room, Maria trembling a few feet behind him. Another crash came from inside. Metal.
Heavy.
Deliberate. This wasn't panic. This was someone working fast. Ethan pressed his palm against the steel door, locked from the inside. He glanced back. Maria, stay behind me. If anything happens, run. No, she whispered, voice cracking. I won't leave you alone. He gave her a soft, grateful look, but his focus snapped forward when a faint buzzing sound hummed through the door. Not buzzing, drilling. Someone was inside tampering with the main network hardware. Of all the rooms in the company, this was the one place where a single wrong move could erase everything. Financial records, legal documents, years of encrypted data. It was the digital backbone of the entire corporation. Ethan slammed his fist against the door. Hey, open it.
Now.
The drilling stopped. A long, tense silence followed. Then a low male voice answered from inside. Turn around, Caldwell. Walk away. Maria let out a small gasp. Ethan's jaw tightened. Not happening. You should have signed the contract. The man sounded calm.
Too calm.
Now you're going to lose much more. Ethan stepped closer to the door.
Who are you?
Brookline send you. Silence, then. Let's just say I finish jobs people like Victor start. Maria whispered, horrified. This is their cleaner. Ethan's pulse hammered. A corporate saboteur. A hired operative. Someone brought in specifically to destroy evidence and frame Ethan in the process. What's your name? Ethan demanded. You won't need it. The drilling started again. Faster this time. Ethan couldn't wait any longer. He grabbed the emergency fire axe from the wall case. Maria gasped, covering her mouth. Sir, no. He could be dangerous. So am I, Ethan said under his breath. He raised the axe, swung, and the blade smashed into the steel doorframe with a deafening clang. Inside, the drilling stopped again. You're making this harder than it has to be, the man growled. Ethan struck again, harder. This time the metal dented. Maria screamed suddenly, pointing down the hall. Ethan. He spun. A second figure, dressed in black, hood low, gloves on, stepped out from the emergency stairwell, silent, still, watching them. Not the man in the server room, someone else. Back up. The figure started walking toward them with slow, purposeful steps. Maria stumbled back in fear. There's two of them. Ethan positioned himself in front of her, gripping the axe. Stop right there, he yelled. The masked man didn't stop. He reached into his jacket. Maria let out a terrified sob. Ethan lifted the axe, muscles tensed. But before he could move, the server room door behind him clicked, unlocked. A voice whispered coldly through the crack. Wrong choice, Caldwell. And then, the hallway lights cut out. Darkness swallowed everything. Maria screamed, and Ethan realized the real attack had just begun. When the lights went out, Ethan didn't just lose visibility. He lost every advantage he had left. And in that darkness, the men sent to destroy him finally made their move. For one terrifying heartbeat, the world turned pitch black. The fire alarm still screamed, red strobes pulsing faintly like dying stars in the hall, but every overhead light had gone dead. The emergency generators should have kicked in immediately, but they didn't. Someone had cut the power, deliberately. Maria's scream echoed through the darkness. Ethan, where are they? I'm right here, Ethan said, grabbing her arm to steady her. Stay close. Don't move. But movement was already happening. Fast, quiet movement. Footsteps point two sets. One approaching from the hall, point one from the server room behind them. They were surrounded. Ethan tightened his grip on the axe. Listen to me, Maria. When I say run, run for the emergency exit. Do you understand? I won't leave you. Yes, you will, he whispered fiercely. Your warnings saved my company. Now I'm making sure you walk out of here alive. A low chuckle floated through the darkness. You're brave, Caldwell. The man in the hall mocked. But bravery won't change what's coming. Ethan could barely make out a faint silhouette, a black hood, broad shoulders, slow, deliberate steps. Then another voice spoke from behind him, the man in the server room. Let's end this quickly. Victor wants the job done. The two men started closing in. Maria clutched Ethan's sleeve, trembling violently. Please don't let them hurt you. Ethan leaned close. Maria, look at the exit sign. Can you see it? She turned her head. In the dim red pulses, the glowing exit sign flickered faintly at the end of the hall. Yes, she whispered. Good. When I distract them, you run. Don't stop. Don't look back. But what about you? I'll be behind you, he lied, because he knew he might not. Footsteps grew louder. Ethan stepped forward to create space between Maria and the attackers. Funny thing about men like you, Ethan said, his voice steady. You think power comes from darkness. He raised the axe. But I've built my life fighting in the light. He swung the axe through the air, hitting the wall with a thunderous crash. Sparks flew as metal scraped electrical conduits. The bright burst lit the hallway for a split second, enough for Ethan to see both attackers clearly. Point one was reaching into his jacket, the other raising a metal tool. Maria, now! Ethan roared. Maria bolted down the hall, sprinting toward the exit sign with surprising speed for her age. The second attacker lunged after her. Ethan intercepted him, slamming the axe handle into the man's ribs. A grunt of pain echoed. The first attacker rushed forward, swinging a heavy flashlight like a club. Ethan ducked, but it grazed his shoulder, sending pain shooting down his arm. He staggered backward but kept his grip on the axe. Maria reached the exit door, pushed it. It didn't open, locked. She banged on it frantically. Ethan, it won't open. The men laughed. We locked all emergency exits on this floor. One sneered. Can't have anyone leaving until the job's done. Ethan's heart hammered. And oh, escape. And oh, backup, and no time. But then, a new sound sliced through the chaos to scream. Not Maria's. Point one of the attackers. Ethan spun just as the man staggered backward, because Maria, shaking but furious, had grabbed a fire extinguisher off the wall and smashed it across his back. The metal clang echoed. Stay away from him, she cried. Ethan stared, stunned for half a second. The attackers turned toward her with rage, and in that moment, a voice boomed from the stairwell below. Police! Hands where we can see them. Maria gasped. Oh, thank God. Someone called them, but Ethan froze, because he knew something the others didn't. He hadn't called the police, and neither had Maria, which meant someone else inside the building had been watching this entire time. James wasn't the kind of man who got scared easily, but when he opened the thick envelope delivered to his penthouse door that night, he felt a chill crawl up his spine. For the first time since everything began, James sat alone in his living room without the noise of his world distracting him. No board members.
No lawyers. No cameras.
Just him and the document Maria had begged him not to sign. A new envelope sat on the table. N.O. return address. Just a typed label. You deserve to know the truth. He hesitated. If this was connected to the contract, then Maria's warning wasn't just intuition. It was a lifeline. He tore it open. Inside was a single USB drive and a handwritten note. If you sign that contract, you're signing your life away. Watch this first. A friend. James stared at the handwriting. It wasn't sloppy. It wasn't rushed. Whoever wrote this knew exactly what they were doing and wanted him to believe them. Maria, he whispered to himself, wondering if she knew more than she let on. Wondering if she was caught in the middle of something bigger. He plugged the USB into his laptop. A video popped up, and James felt his blood drain from his face. The recording showed his CFO, Richard Hale, his closest advisor, sitting in a dimly lit restaurant, talking to two men James had never seen. Their conversation wasn't just casual, it was conspiratorial. Richard leaned in, whispering, the moment he signs it, everything transfers. Assets. Control. Power of attorney. He won't see it coming. James froze. What the hell? Then Richard spoke again. The cleaning lady saw the papers and almost ruined it. She warned him. But he trusts us. He'll sign eventually. James's stomach twisted. Maria wasn't paranoid. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't overstepping. She was right. She was the only one who warned him. The video ended with Richard clinking glasses with the strangers, men who clearly weren't associates James had ever approved. James slammed his laptop shut. His hands were shaking. He wasn't a man who cried, not in front of anyone. But tonight, a tear fell, silent, angry, betrayed. He grabbed his phone to call Maria, straight to voicemail, and that's when panic hit him harder than the truth about the contract. Where was she? Why wasn't she answering? Why did he suddenly feel something terrible was about to happen? He replayed her last words to him, soft but desperate. Don't sign it. Not don't trust them. Not be careful. Not something's wrong. No, she warned him about the one moment that would destroy everything, and now she wasn't picking up. He grabbed his coat, enough waiting, enough wondering. He needed to find her right now, cliffhanger. As James rushed toward the elevator, a new message buzzed onto his phone from an unknown number. If you want to find her, come alone. The moment Nathan opened that old storage room door, the air felt different. Heavy, stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. The fluorescent light flickered overhead, casting long, eerie shadows across the concrete floor. Elena stood right behind him, her breathing uneven, her fingers nervously twisting the sleeve of her uniform. "Boss, you don't have to do this," she whispered. "I do," Nathan replied quietly. His voice had changed over the past few days. Less confident, more burdened. "If someone set me up, this is where the truth starts." He stepped deeper inside. Dust powdered his shoes, and the smell of old paper and mildew coated the air. Elena followed, but her eyes scanned every corner like she expected someone or something to jump out. On the far wall sat a single metal file cabinet. Old, rusted, padlocked. Nathan froze. "That wasn't here before," he muttered. "This room was empty when we bought the property." Elena swallowed hard. "I told you, she kept everything hidden." Nathan turned. "Elena, who is she?" For the first time since they'd met, Elena looked terrified. "My old supervisor," she whispered. "Linda Cooper. She worked here before your company bought the building. She knew things, dangerous things. When she got fired, she warned me not to trust anyone who tried to get you to sign paperwork you didn't read. She said someone wanted your company badly." Nathan's heartbeat kicked up. "How do you know this cabinet is connected to her?" "Because," Elena pointed at the corner of the cabinet, where a faded sticker curled at the edge. A janitorial supply sticker. That was her inventory tag. She used to hide documents in random cleaning closets so nobody would find them. Nathan bent down, inspecting the lock. "So you think whatever's inside proves someone's after me?" Elena nodded, then she whispered, "And I think she disappeared because of it." A chill crawled up his spine. Nathan grabbed a crowbar from the corner of the room, a leftover from a long-ago maintenance project. He wedged it into the lock and pushed with all his strength. The metal groaned, squealed, then snapped open. The drawer slid out with a harsh scrape. Inside were dozens of manila folders, some new, some so old the edges were frayed. Nathan pulled the first one out. Elena gasped. Inside were forged signatures. His signature. On contracts he'd never seen. Agreements he never signed. Deals transferring company assets to Marcus, his own business partner. "No," Nathan whispered, the blood draining from his face. He wouldn't. But the next folder was worse. Photos.
Dozens of them.
Pictures of Nathan, leaving his house, entering meetings, having dinner on random nights. All taken from a distance. Someone had been monitoring him for months. Elena grabbed his arm. "Boss, this is a setup. A big one." Nathan's breathing turned shallow. He suddenly felt like the walls were collapsing around him. Then Elena reached into the drawer for the last file, and her hand froze midair. "Nathan," she said shakily, "you need to see this one." He turned toward her. She was holding a folder labeled, in thick red marker, E. Rosalie's primary witness. Elena's name. Nathan's eyes widened. "Why is there a file on you?" Before she could answer, the sound of a heavy door slamming echoed outside the closet. They weren't alone. "Mark never imagined that the final decision would come down to a single sentence written by a woman who once swept his office floors." Mark stood in the quiet courtroom hallway, the air heavy with whispers and shifting eyes. Across from him sat his executive team, lawyers, and board members. The same people who had pushed him to sign the contract that would eventually destroy his company. That ruin had only been avoided because of one person, Maria. The judge's decision was minutes away. Maria sat beside him, her hands trembling, clearly uncomfortable being surrounded by people in suits and heels. But Mark remained close enough that she could sense his reassurance. "Whatever happens," he murmured to her, "I won't forget what you risked for me." She blushed, shaking her head. "Mr. Hayes, I just told the truth." The courtroom doors opened. A clerk called their names. It was time for the final RL inside. The judge flipped through the thick stack of documents presented over the past days. Emails, false reports, forged signatures, hidden deals. All orchestrated by Elliot, the COO who once shook Mark's hand and smiled in his face. After reviewing the evidence, the judge began, adjusting her glasses. "It is clear that the fraudulent contract was designed to remove Mr. Hayes from his own company." Gasps filled the room, and Mark's chest tightened. Maria squeezed her cleaning rag. She carried it like a lucky charm now, trying to steady her nerves. The judge continued. The whistleblower's testimony was crucial in revealing the truth. Maria's eyes widened. She hadn't expected to be mentioned publicly. "The court finds the contract invalid," the judge declared, "and an investigation into Mr. Elliot Parker and the involved executive staff will proceed immediately." Elliot's face went pale. His lawyer tugged at his sleeve in panic. Maria blinked rapidly, shocked. Mark leaned closer and whispered, "You did this. You saved everything." The security escorted Elliot and two other board members out of the courtroom. Reporters swarmed the hallway as news broke across screens. "Millionaire saved by cleaning lady's warning. Corporate fraud exposed." Mark walked with Maria, shielding her from flashing cameras. "Mr. Hayes! Mr. Hayes!" "Who is she?" journalists shouted. He didn't hesitate. "She's the Reason Truth one today," he said. "And she's not the cleaning lady. Her name is Maria Lopez." Maria tried to shrink behind him, overwhelmed. "And starting today," Mark continued, "she's my new employee relations advisor. Full-time. Benefits. Office. Choice of department." Maria nearly dropped her rag. What?" "Mr. Hayes, I don't even know. You know honesty," he said gently. "You know courage. You know people. That's more than half the executives ever showed me. Tears filled her eyes, closing the STORY weeks later. Maria sat in her small but bright new office. There were no mops, no chemicals, no harsh fluorescent lights. Just a window overlooking the company courtyard and a nameplate that read, Maria Ella, the employee relations advisor. Mark visited her that afternoon, carrying 2 coffees. You settling in? He asked. She smiled shyly. Trying. Everything feels unreal. He nodded. Maybe. But it's real because you earned it. Maria glanced at the framed court document on her wall, the one that proved the truth had won. Mr. Hayes, she whispered, I'm glad you didn't sign it. Mark grinned. Me too. And I'm glad you whispered. They both laughed softly, a rare moment of peace after months of chaos. Outside, life moved on. But inside that office, 2 people who once lived in different worlds now shared a quiet understanding. One whisper had changed everything, and the millionaire's choice had changed her life forever.